It's a really cool school. I've never gone to a school quite like it.
Well, we get to design games and play each other's games. So instead of just doing work all day.
Well, we have the basic classes of a school, but we gave them different names. Like math is called Code World, science is the way things work. We learn everything that all the other schools learn. We just learn it differently.
What is a video game? It's just a set of problems. It could be anything. Civilization is problems in history. Halo's problems in a fantasy world of fighting. Chibi Robot is problems on how a 4-inch robot could clean a house. It doesn't matter what the problems are. All a video game is a set of problems that you must solve in order to win.
Quest to Learn is a new 6th grade through 12th grade public school that opened in New York City in fall 2009. And it's a school that has the tagline School for Digital Kids. And all that means is that we believe that kids can and do learn in different ways outside of school, often via access to digital media and access to kind of online community support. And that if we know that learning outside of school matters a great deal to kids' ability to learn well in school, we have to pay attention to that.
And I only got into games and learning about 6 or 7 years ago when I was helping my 6-year-old play Pajama Sam. And then wondered what a more adult video game would be like and went and got one, you know, arbitrarily because I didn't know what to get, and was really just blown away how hard it was.
Watching these games, you realize the reason why these games are so popular is they're so carefully balanced between offense and defense. There's so many choices, there's so many challenges.
We're trying to prove that game design can help kids think deeper and more abstractly about everything else. And that we feel that the thing about game design is that that's this generation's mode of discourse. It's a fully mainstreamed art form, just like cinema is. But 100 years ago, you couldn't study cinema in a school. Now every school has a cinematography class. And game design has now reached a sort of mainstream acceptance. It's how kids socialize, by playing games.
But after I played a number of hours poorly, I really was fascinated by this cultural phenomena that people are paying for a long and hard and difficult thing that has to be successful in teaching them to play it, because it'll go broke if it doesn't. And when I finally caught on to, you know, the theory of learning behind video games, which I think is quite different than how we learned in school, it became, to me, a life-enhancing experience.
I mean, he has 2 goals, but one of them is impossible to get to. Okay. My game has 2 goals that are both possible to get to.
Take real-time strategy games, which are the most complex video games. A game like Rise of Nations has over 350 commands, essentially hundreds of variables interacting. You play it for hours, you run civilizations. I mean, it's just more complex than what any kid would see in school. We have evolved an almost perfect way to teach these incredibly complex games. So there are kids addicted to Civilization. I mean, and yet Civilization, I defy any adult to go play Civilization, and they will usually give up in 25 minutes. So let's talk about assessment, because assessment and testing is what drives our current school system. If you're not happy with how schools teach today, they teach that way because of the tests we have. So we've come to realize we're not going to change the paradigm of schooling and get deeper learning in it, learning for problem solving and innovation, unless we change the tests and change the assessment, because they drive the system.
And the idea is that quests actually get harder as you move through them, because you're actually developing tools and developing knowledge and developing experiences. And the goal is that you actually can't move to a quest until you've completed one prior. They're proceeding through some kind of challenge, and they're getting closer to some kind of end goal. And we have found that that's very motivating for kids, that they know where they're at, they know how far they've come, and they know what they need to work on.
Game design is not just sitting in front of a computer and creating a game where somebody runs around collecting coins or something. Game design is all about trial and error and figuring out all these things that would make a good game.
Now, here's a little thought experiment assessment for anybody who's a gamer. We take it as completely natural that you would be in an algebra class for 12 weeks, and then I would give you a test on algebra, maybe one designed in some other state, to see whether you learned any algebra. We take that as natural. We do it every day. So let's say a kid plays Halo on hard, and he plays 30, 40 hours, and he finishes Halo, would you be tempted to give him a Halo test? No, not at all. You'd say the game already tested him. So let's think, why is it that we're not tempted to give him a Halo test, but we are tempted to give that algebra test and use that as the judgment? Well, it's because you actually trust the design and learning of Halo better than you trust the design and learning of that algebra class. And I think that's where we're going. We're going to be able to create learning that is so immersive, so deep, so rich in information about the development of people in that learning space, that the idea that we let some tests made in a different state trump what happens outside of that learning will become primitive. We will see it as a very primitive thing.
We think that design thinking is actually a way of looking at the world. It's a way of looking at the world as someone who is active in thinking about how to solve problems, is active in kind of analyzing and understand how things work. And we think that's a great stance to have to look at the world generally. So we believe these kids are going to grow up through work in our school as design thinkers. It doesn't mean that they're all going to go on to be designers in professional lives. We would imagine and love that some of those kids will step into roles as wanting to be scientists, wanting to be writers, wanting to be musicians, wanting to be whatever. But they still will have this perspective on how they look at the world, and that will inform any discipline that they go into.
It's a new phenomena where we really have two school systems. We have a school system for the 21st century in popular culture where people are thinking about complex systems and learn. Kids are producing their own knowledge, whether it's about the weather or robotics or machinima or digital media. And then we have a school system that's basically giving you the basics of numeracy and literacy. And that pressure, I think, will bring about real change.
Well, I think at the kind of heart of everything we're doing is we're trying to help kids understand how to be in charge of their own learning and continue to grow as learners across their whole life, because we just understand that's critically important these days. These kids are not going to graduate, enter a job, and be in that job for the rest of their lives. They're going to need to be able to adapt. They're going to have to learn new things constantly. And so that's the type of learner that we're looking to graduate.
You want to know what I do? Well, oddly enough, I'm by training a linguist, and I still work in linguistics on a field called discourse analysis, which studies how people mean things and make meaning.
My name is Salen, and I wear a couple of different hats. One, I'm a professor at Parsons, the New School of Design, and I teach in a program there called Design and Technology. I also run a nonprofit called the Institute of Play, which is a games and learning space where we develop all kinds of stuff around games and learning. And then my last hat is I'm an executive director of design at this new middle school called Quest to Learn in New York City.